I'm so glad you're here to ease back, to rest, and to listen. Before we get started, I want to share this with you. Rest is many things. Rest is a portal. Rest is a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. Rest is fuel. Rest is a soft place to land. And most of all, rest is sacred. Rest is refuge. Rest is remembrance. Rest is a revelation. You are sacred. Your rest is sacred. And if you want to infuse more of the sacredness of rest into your day to day life, I have something for you. Check out my latest book, Rest is Sacred, at www.restisacred.com. Okay, enjoy your listen. Welcome to Leaders Devoted to Rest, where we explore how rest is a sacred practice that awakens both possibility and power within you. I'm your guide, Octavia, Faith, and Raheem. In each episode, I chat with a leader whose life has been positively transformed through their devotion to rest. Now, you know we aren't just going to sit up here and talk about rest. We are going to actually lay down. Each episode ends with a rest practice for you to try at home. Rest is fuel, and you are in the right place to fuel up. So grab your favorite pillow, blanket, cozy socks, and journal, and ease on back as we begin another restorative episode. Today, I'm chatting with Mia White. Mia is an attorney and a caring people leader who excels at distilling complex ideas into simplified steps. She believes in praxis, translating theories and ideals into meaningful action. Her superpowers are negotiation deals among creatives and collaborators. The stickier the situation, the better. Expanding the pie through mediation and meditation. Showing up and creating vibrant interior spaces. In this episode, Mia and I talk about the courage it takes and the clarity it makes when you lead in a more rested way. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Mia.
Thank
I'm
you
so
for having
delighted you're here. Um, you know, I like to start by stopping. And so I'm going to invite you to pause with me. Eyes can be opened or closed, and together we'll land where we are by taking 3 breaths in through the nose and either out through the mouth or out through the nose. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And then one more time, we breathe in and we breathe out. Hi. Didn't that just
well,
that made a difference, right? So this
it
is
does.
what I'm talking about when I'm talking about pausing and resting. So one of my favorite writers and thinkers, Sandra Cisneros, says to say the name is to begin the story. And I know I've already said your name. I've called you Mia, but it feels important to me to begin this restorative conversation by having you tell us who you are and to share a little bit about exactly where you're arriving from today.
Thank you. Who I am is such a big question, so I will start simply. So I am Mia Marie White. I am the daughter of Anne Marie White and the descendant of Shirley Gleaton Brower. I am proudly from Midwest, but I come to you from Brooklyn, where I've made my home for the last 17 years. So this really is home. I feel like a New Yorker, full and um, and it's relevant because we'll talk about it a little bit today. I am a lawyer by training. I'm also a meditator by training and a mediator by training. And I use all three of those skill sets intertwined. And this rest practice has been central to finding the balance and the through line through all of that. And I arrived today with a lot of patience. I arrived today with more inner peace than I thought I would today. A Monday, I'm ready for the tumult, and I feel like the calm. So I'm arriving with patience, peace, and gratitude.
Wow. And I knew you were a lawyer. I knew you meditated. I'm like, the mediator part, did I know about that?
We may not have talked about it.
I know, that's interesting. And so you're arriving with peace and patience on a Monday. We're
That's right.
recording this on a Monday in the Monday before the elections in the USA.
Mhm,
Those 3
mhm.
breaths were necessary.
There were.
So, Mia, what has rest awakened for you, within the last day, year, month, season? You can pick the context.
I think rest has awakened two things that come to mind first. One is, well, actually, they're both the answer to the question is connection, but it's an external and an internal connection. So it has allowed for me to listen better. I feel like the volume, we say, is your cup full? You can't pour from a full cup. But not only do I feel like I'm getting the volume correct, but I also feel like my cup has expanded. Like what I am capable of has expanded in a way. And part of that is because I'm arriving from a more rested place. The hurry feels external to me, which, look, this is still a journey, but I am noticing it and I'm starting to notice it even in the way that I interact with people. So I'm feeling that peace. I'm feeling that it's awakened a connection because I'm in a better place to listen and respond and to pause in my response versus bulldozing through it. Um and the other thought is also is connection, but it's connection to self because I realized that I was sort of drowning out my own inner voice. And so it's awakened my own intuition and the pause to check in with myself about not just what's the protocol, what's the next step. I tend to jump into problem solving. It's very easy to do, but really pausing and trying to listen to myself and what serves my highest good, what might serve the highest good in any situation, and does this require me or someone else or something else? So it's awakened that thought process for me and I think deepened some connections that I have.
Thank you for sharing that. When you were talking, I thought, "Oh, right, sometimes the next step is to pause." Right? Like, part of the problem-solving process, how you actually access a more harmonious rhythm is that there are pauses in it.
That's
You
right.
know, like, it's not bad or wrong. We're not trying to be anti-problem solvers. I love problem solving. One of my top 5 Gallup strengths is strategy, right?
I love that.
And with I know. Like, it's like strategy, like, I'm so into these strengths, and within how I strategize, there's pausing to really consider, to observe, to notice, and to use your word to really connect to what's actually going on here. I do believe what you said that rest, I know it's not a belief. I know I've experienced in my body and with the witnessed in various clients this awakening that happens. You talked about hearing, and this is just a curious tangent. What have you heard in rest that you're like, this is interesting or are surprising or just right on.
Yeah. Well, the first, again, I'm going with the thing that came directly to me is
Okay.
usually a question.
Okay.
And the really helpful guiding question is, does this belong to me? Because and that has helped me. I work in a potentially high stress environment, often with lots of, you know, immediate next steps or urgency behind it. And there are a lot of emotions that come with that, including managing other people's emotions. Um and so, things can become frustrating or challenging, but taking the step to say, okay, where am I emotionally? Where am I? Does this belong to me? Does this question belong to me? Am I the right person to help move this forward? Am I a connector? Am I, right sizing the role that I play in any given situation and just pausing, does this belong to me? And even in the chaos and the upset, does this belong to me? Which is why part of what I was saying in the beginning in terms of I feel this distance from the chaos that I didn't always feel because I'm not internalizing it in the same way that I
Mm,
used to, you know?
yeah, I hear this is not my chaos.
Yes.
Mm. And rest does help us to be clear on what is ours and what is not ours to carry. Does this belong to me? I really like that because it's also not dismissive. It's a consideration. And you're asking for clarity internally, and then you also must start to look for that clarity externally. Um, so I'm curious, Mia, what are you? I know you're devoted to rest. I know you're devoted to how you show up in the world and have impact. I'm curious, so what are you devoted to doing in this lifetime? What are you devoted to not doing? The not is I often what I realize is that what I say no to or not to impacts what I have capacity to say yes to or to do. Yeah. So I'm curious, what are you can start with either one. What are you committed or devoted to not doing, and what are you devoted to doing?
Well, I am committed to not saying yes to something without making room for it, which often means saying no to something else or doing the trade-off. And the sort of decluttering, the physical decluttering, the spring cleaning or the quarterly cleaning that happens in our spaces, committed to doing that in my own personal inventory because what I need energetically in order to make these things work is I've got to say no to things. So I will not be running myself into the ground as
Can
I
we just
forward.
pause? Can we
Yes.
I will not be running myself into the ground.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Because when we first met, Octavia, you probably saw it in my face. I was like two pieces of string and some duct tape, trying to muscle my way through. Like, how do I? Okay, I'm just like it's a busy season, or it's been a busy couple of weeks, and I was talking with my team the other day. We were like, it's been a really busy week for the last 8 years. Like, we can't wait for we can't wait for the pause to show up and invite us to it. We have to actually create it for ourselves. So, yeah, I've also committed, and this has been a tough one for me. I've committed to taking all of my PTO and all of my sick days. And I've told my team that they need to do the same, which
Um,
I run a global team. My colleagues outside of the US generally have an easier time because there is something very specific about this American work ethic and pacing. But I'm realizing that that's been like you would have thought that I said something completely off the wall. Like I have had more follow-up calls, more questions. Do I wait, how do I do this? Wait, is it okay? And I'm like really meeting with all 20 people on my team to make sure that they are taking their PTO. And I realized for for just about everybody, this is the first time that they've ever worked with a manager who's told them to do that. And in order for me to tell them to do that, I've got to do it. So I'm taking all of my vacation days and all of my sick days every year.
Mm. So you're committed to practicing what you preach and teach.
Yes.
And you are committed to something that I have really deep reverence for, which is not just your own rest and space to reflect and declutter and consider the true yeses and nos. As a leader, you're also like, okay, I'm going to put something on the line, and I'm also committed to supporting in a very practical way my team in doing this. I'm just curious, like, where the courage? Because I think it takes courage. Once we've done it a few times, we have the confidence to continue to do it. But initially, it's courage. Where the courage to, because it is a courageous choice in the context of the kind of work you do and in the cultural context that we live in to say, we do this meaningful, deep, important work and we have to rest. And here's how. Where'd you get the courage to do that from?
The honest answer is I don't know.
Mhm, mhm.
Probably. I know that it's been modeled. That's something that had been modeled for me. I have a matriarchal family, and I think um being willing to speak up or go challenge the status quo is not something unfamiliar to me based on my family model and my parental model with my mother in particular. But also, I think it's born out of the realization that no one's gonna do it for you. I think when I look back and talking about not running myself into the ground, part of it was I was feeling the ground. I was feeling myself being run down into the ground, and I refuse to believe that in order to do this profession or be the right kind of auntie that I wanna be when I show up for my family, um, I don't want to be exhausted or not fully present, and I refuse to believe that I have to run myself into the ground in order to be able to do this thing that I do for my job.
Mm.
So it had I think it also came from a place of feeling like if something doesn't change, um, I will have to stop doing what I'm doing entirely, like switch careers beyond switching jobs, right? Switching careers, which I wanted always open to change, but I want to be led from a place of desire and fulfillment and not escape. Also, I
Mm.
see so many I consider myself to be a small community of happy lawyers, and I'm trying to expand that community, and the only way to do that is to preserve our sense of self. And when you think about, like, I don't know, many people have not hopefully haven't had to interact with too many lawyers, but when they do, I'm hoping it's a pleasant experience, and if it is a pleasant experience, it's usually not just because that person was an expert in that subject, but because they brought their whole selves to the table. They brought the best of who they are as a person and the profession, and so you can't have that if you're not taking care of yourself.
Mm. So I hear the courage being sourced from a deep desire for life, relationships, creating, working, leading to be sustainable.
Yes.
And I also heard you say, I don't want to live a life where I'm running from, I'm escaping from something. I want to be in agency and sovereignty around what I'm turning toward and walking, or maybe sometimes running toward. So, what has rest fueled in your leadership? I hear this courage and this capacity to make space for yourself and then those you lead, but what else has it fueled in your leadership? And maybe if you want to talk about your lineage and how has your relationship or devotion to rest began to shift or open up more possibility around what your legacy is here?
You always have the biggest,
I
boldest.
know that's real.
I
So
love it.
leadership, lineage, and legacy.
No, I love it. I love it. From a leadership standpoint, I think, well, let me take a step back. The other thing that has awakened in me in resting, it's these questions that are coming forward that I'm still trying to figure out how to answer. And we've talked about this a little bit, but the question is, what do I truly desire? Right. And understanding that I'm worthy of all that I desire and dream of. And so it's also proactively leaving room to dream and to wonder. And I think I had room to plan. Right? I had room to I barely have room to pack. I'm always the last minute packer on my trip, but that's a separate thing. But I always had room to plan and to have a conversation and to move the ball forward. I wasn't leaving space to play, enjoy, dream, and wonder. So allowing myself to ask these broader questions of what do I truly desire and connected to the same thing, do I have space to say yes to this? How do I say yes to the things that do belong to me, the things that I really wanna go after, and so I hope that that shows up in my leadership because some of that has been a real desire for greater creativity, um, which sometimes shows up at work, often it doesn't, and needing to create space for that, and again, modeling what that looks like and figuring it out, and there's like a pliability that's attached to that. So being able to try this rest practice is exactly that for me. I do not feel like, oh, I've got this down. Right. But it is a place to return to, kind of like the intrusive thought that might happen during a meditation. I go, okay, and return. That's okay. That's what's happening. I'm noticing I return. So it's given me this tool to help evaluate what do I truly desire? What am I making room for that? And I hope that that shows up in my leadership as well. I hope that when I ask people to think about how they want to spend the next year at work, we're at our year end evaluation stage. And then we'll do some planning in the beginning of the year about how can I support you and what do you see for yourself? I have changed the questions that I ask of my team now. And I'm asking them to expand the vision for themselves. They don't have to tell me, but I ask them to consider what is their personal vision for themselves and for their self and also is what they're asking for out of this work, out of this job, consistent with what they're trying to pursue for themselves. Because if they're not, we have to harmonize those things. And I can't do that for them. I can do it with them. So I ask slightly different questions. That's how I think it shows up in my leadership. Um, I think you asked me a question about lineage.
Yes. So this is, I often in rest, the past, present, and future join hands. Um, and if I think about lineage, I'm thinking about the line we come through, and I'm thinking about back some. And I know when my mom was still living and I was teaching rest, um, I got to watch her be really impacted by my own rest journey and then ultimately her own rest journey. And in that way, I'm like, oh, I'm impacting my lineage and on this deeper level. Let's get there. Let's go there. When I rest, I can hear from the ancestral realm. Yes, y'all, we just talked about like work evaluation questions and time hopped over to the
Yes, we
ancestral
did.
because this is what we do. And sometimes there's a song from my lineage that comes up. Sometimes I just feel like I get this sense of presence from my grandmother.
our other ancestors, and then, like, my present tense and my family and my son and my partner, my niece and my nephew, they're part of lineage and it's a part of my legacy. And because rest is this portal and place of dreaming and visioning, I get more insight. I get more clarity about, like, well, what do I want? How do I access that? And sometimes, like, I love strategy. In rest, I access strategies that are so beyond or sometimes just lie outside of, like, well, that's what I've been told about how to do it. And then because rest supports nervous system harmony, I then can source the courage to do the things that I hear.
Mhm.
I went on a little bit of a tangent to bring us back to how's rest impacting your relationship with lineage and legacy.
I I think I might have shared this story with you, but in a real visceral sense, when we were at the retreat in Georgia, and I think we did a somatic healing exercise, and I was really laying on my side and resting, and I had the comfort of and support of my rest pod cohorts with me, laying hands on me. And there was something about the intentionality of that moment, but also really, one of my rest pod members said to me, and it makes me so emotional to even to think about it now. At the time, my grandmother was in her decline, but and I don't actually know that that's a fair word anymore because she was in the last stages of her life. But we thought that we were going to lose her, um, due to a stroke or a fall, and had actually said goodbye in so many ways. And then she stuck around, and she stuck around for months to the point where her nurses, and thank God for her caregivers, they gave her excellent care, but her nurses called her Lazarus, and out of respect and as a joke, right? Because it was like she had dipped and then stayed present, but what became really clear to me, and the reason why I connect to this moment in when we were all in Georgia is, my rest pod buddy said, you and your grandmother are resting on the same plane right now. Like,
Mm,
you get to share this moment with her. And I actually felt so close. It changed my entire perspective. It helped me to understand that she was taking her time to rest. When I went to I thankfully all of this bonus time that I had, when I went to spend time with her, we actually connected. Octavia, I can't explain this. She wears hearing aids. She was fully deaf in one ear for her entire adulthood, but definitely lost hearing to the point where she could not hear anything without her hearing aids. When I tell you, did not have hearing aids in, and we were connected.
mm,
We were communicating. And I think there is something about I felt it. I felt it when I was at home and I was resting, when I was traveling, when I was resting. I felt it when I would sit with her and rest with her. And so I'm so grateful. It actually unlocked a deeper connection in that moment with my grandmother at the end of her life. And I still feel connected to her and the ancestry, my ancestry, my family in a tangible way too. It's changed a conversation. I was having a tough time. Things were sort of, especially with the recent hurricanes, there was a lot of stress, a lot of reason to be stressed, a lot of emergent external factors that suddenly landed that made everything more complicated than we were anticipating. And I was having a conversation with my mother, and she said, "How's your rest practice going?" And it floored me. I said, these are words I love Anne Marie. She would never have asked me that question before that I had shared with her that this is something I've been working on, and here's how it shows up. Here's when I meditate. Here's some of the yoga that I've been trying. We've opened up this conversation, and she kind of checked me. Um, and it helped to ground me. It also helped me to notice that there is actually a difference. You can tell when I am in my rest flow, I'll say, and when it's really present for me, I show up differently. And so seeing that reflected back to me through my mom has been a really wonderful connection. And you are familiar with one of my cousins, my dear Charisse, but I have another cousin who we just screamed. I mean, I have so many cousins, but I have another cousin who just posted about reading Tracy's book. And I was like, I have another book. And we should have this conversation as a family about what our rest practices look like. And so I'm connecting with my family in real time and having conversations about this that I didn't expect were available to us. And my hope is that there will be a shorter pause for the next generation of our family when they ask the question. And I hope that they're asked, how is rest modeled by the women in your life? How is rest modeled by your family members? How did you learn about this? I hope that it will be a shorter distance. And there are many more examples to that answer of we saw this in so many ways through my cousins, through my aunties, right? I'm excited for that. And I want that to be part of the legacy too, right? That we're leaving these tools that have been passed down to us and tools that we continue to amplify.
And remembering, right?
Yeah.
Ones that we forget. You have a rest and you remember, like, oh, my mom had a prayer closet. That was her resting room, right? You
Mhm.
know, and to the listener or viewer, I often ask the question that I learned from my teacher, Tracy Stanley, who modeled rest for you when I'm resting with leaders. And the room usually just falls silent. you know, it takes a lot to recall the answer to that. And so what we're speaking to is dreaming of and then activating a future where we don't have to pause to answer that question. We can rattle that off just like we can say, well, who taught you about work, or who taught you this, or who taught you any of the other things. Thank you so much. Um, Something that you are really honest about that I so respect is that you are practicing practice. And I often say this rest or yoga, all the things I teach, I'm like, it is a practice, not a perfect. We're in relationship with it, and all relationships kind of it's wavy, like
Mhm.
up, down, hot, cold, on, off. Um, and I also learned this from a leader I rest with. She defined devotion as being touched by and being willing to be touched by a sacred practice every day, even if it's for 30 seconds. And I really love that. Like, I really do love that framing, because that's what we're talking about, you know, weaving rest and the pause and mindfulness and just moving at the speed of trust in life more through our everyday life. And so, with that, I would like to ask you a question I'm always asking, this. What, if any, part of you is in need of rest? And then after that, I'd like to invite you into a rest practice. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Um, my mental is always in need of rest. I am always up for a reminder to just turn the volume down for a moment. Um, and that's where I find myself. I toggle between a lot of different subjects. So what's a need in rest? I actually just mentally need to clear the decks for a moment.
Okay. Clear the mental cliche. Um, Clearing might not be the right word, because usually what happens is we go, "Blue, blue," see all the things in the cachet, and then some clearing happens. So thank you for sharing that. You are welcome to turn your camera off, keep it on. You can sit up, you can lay down, you could do something in the middle. What really serves you, what serves you serves the world. It's going to serve whoever hears this or sees this. So choose what you would like to.
I'm going to lay down and turn my camera off.
Perfect. So we started by stopping. I'm going to bring that instruction forward again, which is just pause and notice the support of the chair or the couch. Pause and ask yourself the question, can I get 1% more comfortable physically? And we invite in shifts by 1% as a reminder and an affirmation too that we don't have to do it all at one time. And so for the mental pause, I'm going to actually invite you to settle awareness in, on, and around your body. To be aware of where the back of the head, neck, shoulders, the whole back of the legs, where it's supported by the surface beneath you. To be aware of the temperature in the room. To for a moment be aware of any sensation. And to ask once more, can I get 1% more comfortable? And then begin to notice the breath, the rise, the fall, the ebb and flow. On the next inhale, if it resonates with you, just silently say, I am. And on the next exhale, here. Inhale, I am. Exhale, here. Inhale, I am. Exhale, here. Inhale, I am. Exhale, here. Do that 2 more times. And then let the words go and notice the resonance of presence they leave behind. Begin to count the breath now down and backwards, starting with the number 10. With every exhale, the number falls. And with every exhale, you let go of a layer of tension, tightness, or any gripping in the mental cachet, so to speak. If or when you lose your place in accounting, you just start back at 10. And then wherever you are in the counting, you let the counting go. You let the counting go. Continue to let go. And we'll rest here in silence for 5 to 7 breaths. Notice your breath. Notice the rise and fall, the ebb and the flow. And then notice your body. And you can check in with your mind. Is there more space between each thought, right? Not trying to stop the thoughts, just a little more space between each one. And when you're ready, deepen the breath with ease. Bring movement back into the body by wiggling fingers and toes. And as always, you can journal, you can free write, or you could just come back and sit for a moment and notice that even though we weren't moving, something might have shifted on the inside, even though, in fact, nothing really externally changed. Did something shift on the inside and thus change how you might engage with and respond to the outside? But when you're ready, you come back. And take the time to journal. Me, it's journaling. I love that. You got your pen in hand. So, Mia, I asked you how you were arriving. How are you leaving?
So even though I started from a peaceful place, it feels more expansive. So I
Mm.
feel I feel clear. Something that also has awakened in me is this, there's actually like I've noticed a synesthesia in myself. I'm associating things with like color and creativity. So my gut response was to tell you I feel light blue, which may not make any sense, but it
It makes thank you.
yeah.
I love that you shared that you feel light blue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Can you just tell us, if you would like to, where people can find you, anything you want us to know as we wind down this restorative conversation?
Well, thank you. You can find me on LinkedIn because I work for a company, and so that's the best way to get in touch with me for professional reasons. Um, I am also on Instagram. I have a private Instagram, but I welcome friends and friends of friends. If there's a 6 degree of separation, that's fine too. I'm at better to see you with BETTER, the number 2, the letter U. But yeah, oh,
Okay.
there you go.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. This has been such a delightful and generative conversation for me. I hope it has been for you. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you. Thank you as always, Octavia.
Thank you so much for listening. And you are still here. I hope that means that you enjoy the episode. Before moving on to the next thing, I have an invitation for you. If you can, pause and notice your breath. Notice your inhale and notice your exhale. As you reflect on this episode, what did you hear that was interesting or inspiring? What did you learn? What did this episode wake up within you? What did this episode allow to rest within you? Thank you again so much for being here. You are sacred. Your rest is sacred. And you being here and you staying here affirm that you can be devoted to rest. That you can be a leader and devoted to rest. Until next time.